Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle Kramer, the CEO of the Earth and Spirit Center, and I am joined once again by Tony Zipple. Hello, Tony.
Hey, Kyle, good to be with you.
Good to be with you too. So, Dr. Zipple, you have a new course coming up in the fall called The Habits of Happiness. And I'm eager to learn a little bit more about this course for the sake of our viewers here. But before we jump into that, I'm wondering if you may be able to share just a few words about yourself, because I know that you have gathered quite a following here at the Earth and Spirit Center, but there may be some folks who have not yet heard of you and your work. Can you say just a few words about your background?
Sure. Well, I'm a psychologist by training, and most of my career has been in managing and running services, but I've always had an interest in positive psychology. What are the things that we can learn from psychology that help us to be happier, that help us to build kind of resistance to stress and difficulty, that help us to increase our level of well-being? And so in the last few years, I've gone really deeply into this, and I'm doing a lot of training and work in the area of basically happiness, the science of happiness.
Well, and you have a quote associated with the web page for this class, and it's from none other than the Dalai Lama, who says that the one thing all of us have in common is the desire to be happy. So I think you're definitely on the right track.
Well, I often start presentations in this content area with that, and ask people, who would like to be 10% happier?
Well, at least Dan
There's
Harris.
really, well, that's right. No matter how happy you are today, you can always be 10% happier. It's a good thing.
Yes, and I love the distinction you make between happiness not being just a feeling, but a habit, and therefore something that's trainable and something that you can improve your skill at. So tell us what you're going to do in this next course, The Habits of Happiness, this fall.
Well, you're right, Kyle. Happiness is not just a state of mind. It's something that we do. And we've recognized this for thousands of years. The Greeks talked about we are what we repeatedly do. And so if you want to be happier, you have more experiences of happiness. And so the course is all centered around strategies for having more experiences of happiness. We'll talk about things like increasing your level of gratitude and having more gratitude experience, self-compassion. We'll get a little bit into sleep and exercise, because that's really foundational to improving well-being and happiness. But each week we'll cover a set of specific strategies based in the research on how we can increase our level of happiness. And as we increase our level of happiness, it's not just mood. We increase our life expectancy, we increase our health, our resistance to disease, we increase our connections with other people and our productivity. There's all kinds of payoff to this, and we'll talk about specific strategies for getting there.
You know what I noticed in what you just described, Tony, was that the changes one might make to cultivate more happiness in one's life are not necessarily, or not at all, changes of external circumstances. They were changes of internal attitudes or practices that are within one's own control, exercise, and basically how you see the world, as opposed to changing the world to fit your expectations or demands, that you be happy or that it please you.
I think that that's right. What we've learned from the research is that about 40% of our level of happiness is the result of things that we do. A lot of it is genetic. We all have kind of a genetic set point for happiness. And some of it are external circumstances, income, health, those kinds of things. But a big chunk of it, 40%, are things that we can choose, and by making better choices and building better habits of happiness, we can significantly increase our level of happiness. We can work inside that 40% and make the most of it.
What's the relationship, Tony, between happiness and mindfulness?
Yeah, happiness and mindfulness are really closely connected. It's tough to do these practices of happiness without being present. And I'm not talking about mindfulness necessarily with big M, where we're going to sit in formal practice for 45 minutes or 3 hours or 10 days and do mindfulness exercise. But I'm talking about mindfulness with a small m. How do we be more present? How do we slow down, stop, take a breath, just observe what's going on inside of us and outside of us so that we can make better choices about what we do? The foundation to any kind of change that we want to make in our lives is that kind of mindfulness, slowing down and being present so that we can make better choices about what we want to do next.
Absolutely. And I assume you'd agree with me that there's a good and I think probably necessary relationship between mindfulness with a small m and mindfulness with a capital M, the formal practices and the informal tools you can deploy at any time of day.
Absolutely. If you're really good at mindfulness, capital M, this will come really naturally. And what I found is that there are a lot of people who struggle with some of the traditional kind of long form mindfulness activities, but we can give them sort of short form activities so that they can, in 60 or 120-second bites, get much better at that kind of immediate presence.
Amen. That sounds great. Well, Tony, again, the class is The Habits of Happiness, and this is going to take place this fall, starting in October on the 23rd in the evenings, 7 to 8:30 for 6 weeks here at the Earth and Spirit Center. We are so excited for you to be teaching this, and there will be a link for folks to learn more about this class on our website. Tony, thank you so much.
My pleasure. One last thing that I want to add, though. I want to let everybody know who comes to this that this is something that asks the participants to do things. This is not just lecture. So we're going to be doing a lot of experiential work. We're going to be doing some small group work and really asking participants to engage in some of these practices and share their experiences with others. It's a really wonderful experience, but there is some connection that you need to make with other people over the course of the 6 weeks.
Okay, so not just sitting in the back quietly taking notes, you're going to have to put yourself out there a little bit.
Hard to hide out for the whole 6 weeks.
Okay, and I should have asked this earlier, but I'll ask it now. Is this a course that would have any sort of prerequisite in terms of meditation experience? Is this appropriate for folks who might be beginners at mindfulness or experienced meditators? Who's the ideal audience?
No prerequisites for it at all. The only thing you need is a desire to make some changes in your life that increase your level of happiness. In fact, the very first thing we do walking in the door is a really powerful short form mindfulness activity. So you'll learn some mindfulness things coming in the door and how to use them. And so even if you've had no experience with mindfulness or happiness or positive psychology before, this will still be a good fit for you.
Fantastic. Well, again, The Habits of Happiness, Mondays, 7 to 8:30 this fall, starting October 23rd for 6 weeks. We look forward to it, Tony. Thanks so much.
Good to be with you, Kyle. Bye-bye.